The 252nd Caravan Conservator Regiment proved the right to rule in no uncertain terms. General Vad Stubbs' ability to organize and reform this long-neglected army did not go unnoticed by the Segmentum top brass. His career could not fail to rise, in time, beyond the role of Governor-General to a small star system. For the time being, however, Stubbs busied himself and his proud regiment in post-war reconstruction. Thankfully, the warp storm vanished of its own accord. Kaurava 4 was suitable for resettlement. Only Kaurava 3 did not feel the commotion of construction, mining, and terraforming. This planet was left largely barren. Who could say what else slept beneath those sands? In time, the system became a proud Imperial hub, and famed Guard academies turned out superior infantry, second only to Kasser itself. Kaurava became home to proud human populations, warlike and devoted to the Emperor. In these times, it would be hard to imagine that a bloody war had been fought, or that heresy and chaos had ever been there. Under the visionary leadership of War Boss Gorguts, the Orcs achieved a complete and unrivaled victory over all 4 planets of the Kaurava system. Generations of Kauravan Orcs had dreamed of such a day, never imagining that they would not only overthrow the Imperial Guard, but 7 other armies to achieve their aim. All Kaurava was soon overrun and teeming with orcs. A phase of wild looting and pillaging was followed by orc settlement, wherein clans laid claim to entire territories at a time. Without the watchful eye of Gorguts, however, all this would have ended in confusion and petty clan warfare. Gorguts had other greater plans. The 4 planets of Kaurava were to be turned to this purpose. Mines yielded valuable metals, and fields of orcish factories produced everything required for a proper campaign of galactic conquest. A great war, staged from such an excellent platform and supplied with such resilient, war-worthy orcs. How could such a war result in anything but great victories and greater glory? They hailed the mighty leader, War Boss Gorguts, Lord Al Koruva. Once, in another age, the Necrons had fought a great war in the Kaurava system, and lost. Awakened again, so many millennia later, they found new, strange, and terrible armies around them. This time, however, profiting from the confusion of the living, they would not be denied victory. Soon, the planets teemed with the dark forms of the Necron army. Great tomb ships stood guard, while others launched on excursions of conquest. In all doings, their enemies succumbed quickly in confusion and terror. This was no accident. Where the Kauravan Necrons went, their god, the Great Deceiver, ever clouded the minds of their foes. Once, there was a simple soldier who was ignorant that he possessed latent abilities as a psyker. Without training, he could not guard himself, and the gods of chaos whispered to him, driving him feverishly mad. They made him carry out certain plans, perform certain black rites, so that a terrible rift in space and time was forged. Chaos poured out. The Alpha Legion appeared, and the warp storm blossomed from the rift. The gods gloried in their deed. Led by Chaos Lord Feravius Charon, the Alpha Legion spread, slaughtered, and conquered. No force, not even the mortal enemies, the Imperial Space Marines, could withstand the wrath. 9 armies vied for the Kaurava system, and Chaos proved mightiest of them all. The 4 Kauravan planets now teem with the strange and twisted forms of chaos. Demons walk openly, and the warp storm grows in size and strength. The Alpha Legion, under Lord Charon, make ready for a far greater war against their oldest and most hated of enemies, the Imperium of Man. It was no surprise that only the likes of the Blood Ravens should prevail in a battle so hard-fought and entrenched as the Kaurava conflict had proved. Under the capable guidance of Force Commander Indrik Boreal, the Ravens' 9th Company had acquitted themselves faultlessly. It was unfortunate that, in following their orders, they had been compelled to neutralize the armies of the Imperial Guard and Sisterhood. But such was war. Without doubt, the finest hour the Blood Ravens had known was the triumph over the vile forces of chaos. A Space Marine can aspire to no greater honor than fighting and defeating those treacherous blasphemers. Within days of the Blood Ravens' victory, the warp storm had vanished as mysteriously as it had come. After the war was won, a new fortress monastery was founded in the lands of solitude. That territory was given a new name, Borealum. Meanwhile, fresh Imperial Guard troops were brought to the Kaurava system to constitute a new and better regulated planetary defense force. Defeating 8 powerful armies was a potent demonstration of the great strength, great strike tactics which Commander Orescar espoused. Although his theories had been met with skepticism before, his superiors now debated the merits of such strategies and ways to incorporate them into standard Tau warfare. With the Kaurava conflict definitively settled, Commander Oreskar's first cautious step was to complete and upgrade the defenses of the Nanyanoi stronghold. Meanwhile, the Warp Storm, which was the purported reason the Tau had entered the Karatha system, silently folded in upon itself and vanished. With the Warp Storm gone, the Tau fleets began to make their way to Karatha untroubled, and a massive colonization project then began. Commander Oreskar was not to stay in the system which had found peace and the greater good. Instead, the ethereal Aun Roir assumed leadership, guiding the way towards Karatha, becoming a full-fledged sept of the Tau Empire. At the end of the bloody contest, only the Eldar army remained standing. The Necron had been returned to the depths of Karatha 3, and all those who would meddle, pillage, or spread chaos throughout the galaxy were gone. Farseer Karis had succeeded in her task. She had led her people among the branching roads of the future to the best possible of ends. The Ulthwi Eldar then scoured the planets of the Karatha system, destroying all vestiges of the war, machine and soldier alike. All, that is, except for those Imperial Guard troops who had somehow survived the defeat. These surviving guardsmen eventually contacted Segmentum Command. When fresh Imperial forces arrived, no trace of the victors could be found. What had taken place could not be explained. A new Imperial regiment was instituted, this time under greater ecclesiarchal surveillance, and rebuilding began. Strangely, however, all efforts to colonize the third planet met with inexplicable disaster. Eventually, embarrassed and unable to explain, the new Governor-General simply abandoned the planet. Occasionally, he would receive strange reports of slender, swift-moving figures and alien-looking arches which would appear and then vanish again without a trace. With the last major threat removed, the Dark Eldar were now free to roam through the Karatha system, pillaging and laying waste as they saw fit. Like gruesome locusts, the Blackheart Cabal darkened the skies with their vehicles, descending on territory after territory, laying claim to prisoners and other spoils. The speed and ravening hunger with which these raids were carried out was remarkable. Nothing could escape them. Nothing could outrun them. The keen senses of the Dark Eldar seemed to pierce all cover in search of their prey. It was not long before all Karatha was stripped bare and devoid of life. Back on the moon of Lacune, cages grew full of captives, and more cages were built. Archon Terrell and his master, Lord Vecht, sat and supped goblets filled with the souls of their enemies. The homunculus Grumenael cackled gleefully over his victims. As the Warp Storm quietly disappeared, so too did the Dark Eldar vanish, returned to the webway, to revel, then go in search of new, fresh worlds to pillage and enslave. On arriving in the Kaurava system, Confessor Turgainum March had remarked to Canoness Selena Agna that he would not be surprised if the place was so corrupt that it all must be put to the torch. In retrospect, these words seemed prophetic. Everywhere they looked, the Sisters of Battle found only weakness, heresy, and abomination. Chaos had nearly devoured the entire system, beginning with the fourth planet. Added to this was the warp storm, which had vanished shortly after the defeat. It hardly seemed likely that any Imperial Guard or Space Marines could have avoided corruption in such circumstances. Although tragic, it was necessary to perform a field inquisition and purge every one of them. When the Sisters of Battle had finished their cleansing, the star system was officially dedicated to their order. Relics of their great victories during the Kaurava conflict were placed in the founding of 6 great ecclesiarchal cities, each devoted to one of the orders militant of the Sisterhood. Pilgrims journeyed from across the galaxy to these retreats, and many millions of sisters gathered there for prayer and preparation in the bastion of Holy Kaurava.